Welcome to MSP Unplugged. I'm your host, Paco Lebron. This is the place to learn how to run your MSP, whether you're a nimble MSP or leading a team for the journey. This is the place for you. Let me go ahead and introduce my co-host. We have none other than Mr. Rick Smith over at Renactus Technology, fresh off of Newark, New Jersey, Elizabeth, Union, you name it. He is the man over in New Jersey. Rick, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I don't know. This is an ongoing joke Paco has for me because we do have a lot of towns in New Jersey, and he thinks that everyone is just end all and be all with Newark. He thinks there's two towns, Newark and Atlantic City, basically. It's all Paco knows. But yeah, I'm doing good, man. Over in Newark, Union, Elizabeth, and the rest of them that you say, we're all doing good.
You know, it's funny. I was watching a video the other day, and they were saying how the Latinos have to represent on their specific flag on different parts of New Jersey, or they're going to get carjacked. So it was one of funniest situation where, like, if he's Puerto Rican, you got to wear your Puerto Rican flag over. If you're in Elizabeth, if you're over in this other town, you got to wear the Dominican flag on your car. If you got to do this, so it was actually pretty funny on the good old areas of, and I think everyone has those culturally inclusive areas that we like to call home. So just funny and yeah. It's always a good inside joke to Rick, my good friend,
man.
Mr. Smith.
It's a melting pot.
It's a melting pot. There you go. So, before we go off anymore off the rails here, we got Corey Kirkendall over at 5K Technical Services. Corey, how are you today, my friend?
Doing well, brothers. Doing well, man. Good to be here, man. Looking forward to this episode for sure.
Yep. I think this is the first episode since we've had our first stop over at TechCon Unplugged in Newark. It was a great area. It was a great time. Just saw Corey, I believe it was last week, over in GTIA's CCF as well. And that was a great time discussing and meeting some like-minded people on trying to improve the things over for the community. And for those that don't know what the abbreviation of GTIA is, Rick, what did it used to be?
ChannelCon. No. Oh God, I know what it used to be. The other one. CompTIA, sorry.
Yep, I did it on purpose because I knew Rick was going to get thrown off. But yes, CompTIA, obviously they got sold the rights, the brand over to private equity. GTIA is now the community effort and all things for community as well. So they look to have a lot of great things coming up as well. So it was really great to be a part of that event. But as I mentioned, TechCon Unplugged is one of those great opportunities to meet, and we are officially on the road for our second stop. This year looks a little different. You look concerned, Rick. Do you have something to mention in there?
No, I'm listening.
Okay. I'm just making sure. Because we have a couple flubs for those that are listening. We had a couple bloopers in the beginning of this episode. We got to make sure we're nice and tight. But again, we're officially on the road for a TechCon Unplugged tour. This year is going to look a little different. Instead of you coming to us, we're coming to you. 3 cities on 3 dates. We just completed our first one, and our next one is going to be over in Chicago. Yes, June 20th over at the Hyatt Lodge, over at the old McDonald's campus. Join us as we do our live audience podcast, along with MSP roundtables to discuss what's on your mind to help grow your business. We'll be discussing things like AI, operational efficiency, and again, we may have some guests along the way as we're working on a pre-event right before this event kicks off at 2:00 Central. But most importantly, we're going to be doing what we always do, and that's making where the magic happens. Go ahead and head over to techconunplugged.com, and you'll see more for us, or head over to our Eventbrite link as well. And the event jersey is still showing on that register now page. So we'll make sure we have that this time of record, and we will look to see you there. All right. As I fumble through that whole process there, fellas, you got a tip, trick, story that we got for this week? I'll go ahead and start off with Mr. Corey Kirkendall. What do you got for us this week?
Yeah, man. Doing it for so long, man, there's always a tip, trick, or something going on. So I think the biggest tip I have, man, is that, an opportunity come out from working with partners, man. There's been opportunities been trying to foster and work through with partners and a customer for, man, I want to say probably 5 years, where I just had to continue to mine, continue to stay abreast and say whatever. And it finally came to fruition, which has been great. Typically I would have given up by now. I'm like, yeah, that ain't going to happen, but just kind of continue to nurture it and continue to go on. And so all that hard work and all that persistence and things is finally starting to reap the benefits and the fruit. So that's what's been really good. So that my tip is, man, is don't give up. and it ain't no until they say no. And if it say no, then that means not right now. Keep following up, right? That's my tip and trick for this week for sure.
Yep. Good words to go by. Exactly. You just never know when you're going to get them at the right moment. Mr. Rick Smith, what do you got going on?
I got a lot of. This has been one of those crazy weeks, but I'll say this: productivity is my word of the year. Basically, being more productive, being more efficient. So we've had a lot of episodes and a lot of talk about AI. One of the things I will encourage everyone to do, which I took some serious time to learn the last couple of weeks, was to create. I told everyone I use Centra for my MSP, which is great because everything is kind of honed into the business itself. So they have all these different bots that can do different parts of the business. So marketing, social media, planning, all the different things the different elements of your business you would do. But one of the other things, I still mess around a lot with ChatGPT. And if you look on YouTube or you look anybody talk about ChatGPT, they talk about making your own GPTs basically from ChatGPT. And I will say this, for a knowledge base, it is awesome to use. You can train a GPT for something you do every day at work. Like, so let's say whatever program you may use or software you may use, you can link to that program's that application's support page, their help page, or wherever they have documentation about the product. And then you can create a GPT to use for that and tell it specifically, I use it. This is the use case for this. And then each time you need help with something, and then you continue to train the bot, train the GPT, excuse me, so that as problems arise or questions arise or you need help with stuff, you can go there. And it's kind of like almost like a hands-on expert person helping you with it. So I just encourage everyone. This is something I've been doing now, creating GPTs for different scenarios of what we're doing. I even use one now for scripting, for certain things we're doing with sales. I create the bot, I always use the word bot, but create the GPT, continue to enhance it, add, give it more references to go look for, to get information from. And before you know it, you got a trained companion or a trained employee to help you with certain things. So I guess my tip is to learn a little bit more about creating your own GPTs. I'm sure that they do it in Google's, and there's like 20 more different LMN models now. So, but that's my tip today.
Sounds good. We definitely understand that we are welcoming our AI overlords as we prepare for the AI takeover. But as Rick mentioned, there are many, many, many AI tools, platforms. I think Corey, probably from the three of us, has probably immersed himself in more AIs than the two of us on just what's out there, testing, vetting, because there's things to consider, right? You have to understand, is that AI located in the right place? Are they handling data in the right way? And how productive are they going to be as an additional tool versus leveraging something that you currently have right now? Before I go on to my tip or tricks or story, Corey, is there anything you wanted to add on to Rick's AI conversation?
No. So I love what Rick's doing, man, is that you have to go out there and leverage it and learn it and continue to do it. And there's a tool that everybody uses, right? If you're not using it, it's a phrase, everybody has it. Today is the worst AI you will ever use, right? Because tomorrow it'll be different. It's better. It changes that fast. It changes so fast and so frequently. And this is probably the biggest technology wave that we've ever seen in our lifetime, but it's definitely one you want to be on. So test it, play with it, continue to go down that path and work with it. But don't, but today you got to really trust but verify, right? And making sure that, hey, this is what it's doing. Does it line up with what I'm having? How are they protecting my data? Because when you look at it, the AI piece is all about data privacy and what happens with that data and where it wants to go to it, because it wants to consume that. That's where the power, that's where the money, that's where the ultimate is, right? So you say, why are they giving me something for free? Well, it's not free because they want you to feed it and they want the data on the back end side. So you got to make sure that you're protecting your intellectual property, you're protecting your customers' information, but you got to play with it. I love Centra AI. I love some of the others that's out there, but you got to make sure that one, that you're protecting yourself and that it's working through and is trained on how you want to be using it, that it matches your business. And I think Rick pointed out, not a lot of people when they talk about AI talk about training it, right? But it has to be trained, it has to learn, because if it doesn't, it will start to hallucinate and start to make up things that it thinks it wants to do because it has some inherent knowledge of something that's like it. But then you're going to start putting out information that doesn't align with where you are. So make sure you train it and you're doing the right things is really what I do. Research, play with it, break it, try it again, reprompt it, make it happen for sure. And if I ask one more thing, make sure you document your prompts, right? Because if you notice, I can ask AI the same thing 3 different times and get 3 different answers. And so
Right.
what's going to probably start to see, and you're already seeing this now, is people are going to ask you, how did you come up with that information? And you need to be able to produce that prompt that came up with that information to say, here's how I got to where I got to. And what a lot of people do is they don't remember those prompts, they don't write them down. And so they go back and say, well, I thought I said this, and I thought I asked it this, and I thought I did that. Well, at that point, you're going to get yourself in trouble because you need to know very specifically what it was that I asked, what did I expect it to do, and what was the response that I got back out. And we're seeing some big court cases and legal cases out there of where professionals don't remember their prompts and they can never come back to the same information or get close to the information they had to, and it's putting their industry and their jobs and their whole situation into a very unpredictable and legal situation that they can't get out of because AI is coming up with something and is regenerating based off of a made up or close enough prompt. So just remember that. Write down those prompts and save them because those are very important.
It's kind of like when you were in school and you do math, particularly algebra, your teacher would say, show your work, right? Show how
Yes,
you
yes.
arrived at the answer. It's the exact same thing. It makes
Show your
perfect
work.
sense.
Yep.
Yep. And as you mentioned, the AI has changed so much where Copilot's big piece was, hey, we cite the references, we cite the sources. ChatGPT doesn't. Well, in the age of AI, it updates so fast that now it does. And it does for that reason to cite the sources that it's pulling this information from and being able to provide that information to those that as well. So yeah, again, take your pick. There's plenty of AIs for everything. But there's a lot of foundational work to be done before you enter the AI arena as well. For us, for Copilot, we've always been really focused on security, but compliance always kind of went second in nature behind that. And now it's both being worked on hand in hand. And so we're implementing a lot of those compliance pieces, such as the sensitivity labels, permissions, things of that nature, to ensure that the AI that it pulls from this information and these policies are done in the right way. So definitely understand there's some foundational work, but definitely jump in, take a look, maybe use a test email if you want, just to see what it's all about. That would probably be our suggestion here. I have a story for this week, which is a very interesting Microsoft 365 new prospect client issue that will be very intriguing, interesting, and will have you all scratch your heads as to why did that happen. So I received a call at 5 in the evening, 5 afternoon, from a new prospect that was referred to us by a client. They called us and said, hey, we are a tax professional. We're in busy season right now. We just got locked out the past couple of days for our Microsoft 365. We can't get into our emails. We can't get into anything. When we called Microsoft, when we had the opportunity to get a hold of someone after trying over and over again, we were told that this individual name was on our account as a global admin, and we don't know who this person is. I, as the owner, am not a global admin. I can't even get into the tenant. Can you help us? So I'm like, that sounds rough, but let me see what I can do. So here's how the conversation went. Apparently, the email domain that this client was on was a brand that was acquired that he sold years previously to another entity. that entity apparently was paying the subscription and the domain for X amount of years. We'll throw in 10 years is maybe the possible years that they've been doing that how long ago that it was sold. So they had been operating from this email system after it had been sold over the last decade. And then the last couple of days they got knocked out. So my assumption at first was, hey, do you happen to know the other entity? Do you know the owner? Give them a call. See, maybe it was a lapse in payment. Maybe there's something that went on from there. Because again, they don't own the domain. They don't have access to the tenant. He calls the owner that bought the brand, comes back and says, hey, we spoke to them. They haven't paid the domain in 4 years. They let it lapse 4 years ago. So for the past 4 years, they've been operating on an email domain, on an email system with a domain that no longer anyone seems to have owned, that was still routing traffic somehow, some way for the past 4 years. So, I say, all right, well, let me call OpenTeks because that is our CSP, our distributor. See kind of if they can lead me into the right direction of how to help with an account takeover, right? Because again, at this point, I don't know if it's malicious or if something, systemized why it happened. So I call OpenTeks, great support no matter what time you give them a call. They gave me a number specifically for account takeovers to call Microsoft. I called Microsoft. Microsoft said, that's interesting. They went ahead and said, all right, if the client can prove that they own the business at one point or another with an articles of incorporation or EIN number, we can restore access to him, and then they can go ahead and restore everything back to as far as credentials, permissions, licensing, etc. Now, as this was all occurring, I just, seeing how much information I can pull from them, because they can only give you so much information, limited, because they don't know if you own it, if you're just some Joe Schmo that came from there. So I did confirm that the name that was mentioned as the global administrator was added several years before. So to lead me to believe it's probably not malicious. It was probably some other MSP, an IT manager from the previous brand, etc. Run through this whole process, finally got a hold of Microsoft. We sent them the paperwork. They're now working on getting all that information figured out for them. And then it just so happens that they have a new brand that has been their business, but they were waiting until after tax season to move that over. So this kind of leading into our MSP success stories, lessons from the field topic is, it sounds like we're going to get them back into their system. It's going to be a migration. It's going to be a new client. But this is the reason why, as an MSP, you should be managing the domains for your clients. Now, we take this a step further where in our inclusive packages and whatnot, we tell them we provide them a domain or purchase. So we transfer their domain into our Cloudflare platform so that we can manage it. So we know no one is going to be able to mess with it, whether it's a billing, whether it's a developer, whether it's someone messing around for newsletter settings. A ticket needs to be created. We can manage it. And then we also implement all of the other security settings as well, making sure that it does align to those best practices. So that is my tip, trick, or story for this week, which leads into the lesson from the field. And so from that, as you had heard previously, the topic for this episode is MSP success stories, lessons from the field. And I just went ahead and provided that one, but we're going to go ahead and kick it off to Mr. Rick Smith. Rick, is there a story? It sounded like you had an eventful week this week. Anything from this week that could be known as a success story that may have been a lesson from the field?
Well, I think it ties right into what you just talked about. But one of the things I realized, when we take on a client, whether we've had this, now I've had clients for 15 years, 18 years is the longest client I've had now. And they just, there are certain things, they assume we have everything or know everything, right? But there are certain things that we are in control of, or we do have access to, and certain things we don't. So I decided to make this matrix, essentially letting clients know what we control and what we don't, and here's how to access it. So, and the reason we do this is this. I've always, coming from being a single person shop, it was always we talked about this a lot, the get hit by a bus scenario. If I get hit by a bus tomorrow, excuse me, I don't want to get hit by a bus. So, the powers that be above, I'm not wishing on anything, but I'm just saying, if I get hit by a bus tomorrow and I'm a single MSP, oh, thanks, Paco. How do my clients get their stuff back, right? How do they access, how do they get control of what we control now, right? So we use Hoodoo, and we've created, basically, for every client, this has been a process we've done for a long time now, but for every client, we create our own admin account for whatever we control, and they either have one in place themselves or we create one for them. We never use the one that we create for them, but we put that in their Hoodoo instance, and we also give it to them, right? So this is how you access your domain. This is the password you have for your domain, your DNS records. This is the password you have to access your website, if we have your website, or to access your server itself, if it's a physical or a cloud server. This is how you do those things in case you cannot reach us. So one of the things I realized, though, is clients have no idea what half of these things are, right? So if I tell you, and this when you take over an account and you ask them, hey, if you ask them for a list of the passwords and access they have, they may have one or two things and not the 23 things that they have control of. And then they don't know who or where to get that access from, right? Who has it? So we created this matrix basically saying, hey, these are the things that we have. This is how you access it. This is your stuff. We strongly encourage you, do not use this unless it's an emergency, and do you not share it with anyone unless it's an emergency. And we tell them, because if you go in and change something and we have to fix it back, that's a fee. That's a charge, because it's not, it causes
An
work.
Advanced diagnostic fee.
You can call it what you want. I call it the stupid tax. But anyway.
I mean, that's the nice way of saying it was so advanced that you had to take care of it.
But so this is one of the things I think this is the lesson learned. And here's an example, and this is what sprouted all of this. We had a client who called one day, said, hey, we're not getting any emails and my website's down. I'm like, okay. They're like, well, can you help us? And I'm like, I don't have control of that stuff. You have it. And he's like, no, you have it. I was like, I don't have control of it. I didn't build your website. I do have access to your Office 365. I gave the DNS records to your guy to put in there, but I don't have control of all those things. So, and I think I may have told this story before. I'm not sure, but I said, we need to call. So I had the record of who the guy's name was. And I said, we need to call XYZ and ask him what's going on with the domain. And my client says, well, you can come to the office and we conduct a seance because he's been dead for 3 years. It was one of those things that it was funny when he said it. This is kind of humorous, but
morbidly.
Huh?
I said morbidly humorous.
Yeah. But anyway, it turns out that there was, and this is what's weird, and this is where you really got to watch what happens. There was access to it that he granted them, that they gave to me. But when I go to I can access the domain. I renewed it with our corporate card, charged the client for it, because it's basically what happened was the domain expired.
Yeah.
So we can get in, but the domain is under this person's business who's no longer here. So you all know you cannot, without permission, they're not going to let you transfer that domain out. So essentially they're telling me, oh, you have to find out someone from his estate to get them to give you guys permission to move it out. So, which is just basically like I told the client, I said, honestly, you got two choices. If I'm you, it's going to be a challenge to probably get it done. You don't know how you're going to be in business. Renew the domain for like 5 to 10 years, right? So then you don't have this problem. And then we can fight on the other end to try to get control of it. But my whole point in all of this is knowing who controls what is very important, because when disaster strikes or something happens and you need access to something that you don't, because your clients are going to come to you first. So if their website's down, if their whatever, their email doesn't work, whatever, they're going to come to you first. Some things you have control over, others you don't. So it's always a good idea to maybe find out who controls what. And the second part of that is it's always a good idea to try to get control of it if you can. Like
Right.
Paco was talking about transferring the domains over to them so that they can control it. It makes sense because, again, when a change needs to be made, I got to call you to get your web developer's name, who gets the guy who runs the DNS, for me to say, hey, I need access to these records. Because if I send it to them and say, can you put these records in, that could take forever. So I guess a good lesson learned is to have a matrix of all that you're running, that you're doing for a client, and all the possible things that they could ask you, and then make a list of who's in control of that, where it is, how it can be accessed. And it works for you, and it also works for your client, so that they know that, who to go to for what. And it also will give them maybe the incentive to say, maybe I should just give all of this to you guys to control, so that it's all in one house. And what that does do, we talk about this, it creates stickiness as well, right? It makes it harder and harder for your client to move on, but it also makes it convenient and easy to get things done when it needs to be done. So I'll leave it there.
That's good stuff.
I think so. A couple of things, right? There's the opportunity of getting control, right? And managing and understanding where all the pieces lie, right? And that's just off of good documentation. If you are struggling on what to document, I think it's still active. I'll double check, but Informed IT, which is Matt Rainey's former basically set of PDF forms that he had created for the MSP community to use. I'll ask him again if that's still live. If not, I know that he did something special for us before. But that is a great resource on these are the forms and the things to document for your business. And then taking that into a next level, you take those items and put them into a documentation platform, whether you're doing it manually inside of SharePoint, you are and calling it via a Copilot, you are throwing them into Hoodoo, IT Glue, manually creating those fields. But this gives you a starting point of what to document. And then especially for things like domains, servers, domain controllers, WAPs, networking equipment, all kinds of other hardware and things from there. And it helps bridge you into the software piece and, moving along. And so definitely I would say that that's a great starting point for you on that, and documentation is key. The second piece is, and maybe we should have Henry and Mark Menzies, they ended up doing a contingency planning session at TechCon several years ago. And so this was just a great topic where, yeah, you now have control of it, but what if the same thing were to happen to you? And so what are the contingency plans to ensure that not only for yourself, but for your clients as well? Because as much as how Rick said right now, it's a pain in the butt for him and his client now to try and get that domain back. Now the question is, have you prepared things for yourself in case that scenario happens, so you're not a burden to your client as well? So maybe we'll bring that up as a topic, get them to come back on and talk a little bit about what they did and what they're doing as well. So those are my key points from there. Mr. Corey, what do you got for as far as MSP success stories and lessons from the field?
Now, when what you're hitting on is key, and one of that things is actually a huge selling opportunity is teaching companies that their domain and everything else, even their website, is their property. And so they need to do it. So most people don't understand that when I go and build out a website and they pay like $3,500 for the website, that means that I own the content, but I'm licensing the website. That means when it's gone, I can get all the content, but the pictures and all that stuff doesn't belong to me, right? Because that means it would be more like a $50,000 or $100,000 website to get, you know, to get the rights to be the only one to have it. And then that same conversation is when you have marketing teams out there that's building websites and doing things, they try to do the exact same thing. They will register the domain on behalf of the customer, own all of that information and where it comes from. And then, something happens, that web developer moves on or goes away. And now that customer's whole business, all their marketing and everything is tied up into that situation. So it's a great opportunity for you to come in there and say, all of your contracts from a perspective of phone, website, all that, you need to bring that back in, and we're going to help you bring that back in so that you can have full ownership of what your business is all about. And we're going to help you follow down that path. And we're going to have it right there for you to do it. But it also shows one thing that's cool. It's a double-edged sword is that that's their information. They own it. And what you're saying is that you will have access to that information, because I'm not trying to put you in a chokehold by holding your information and not sharing it with you. You have free reign to go in there as well. If anything happens to me, it's your information. You're paying me to manage it, but ultimately it's yours. And a lot of MSPs don't do that. They actually own it. They don't have access to it. And they try to use that as, hey, as long as I got it, you don't have it. And so it's kind of held hostage. And that's actually a good way to build that trust. So I love it from that perspective, is leverage it as in part of your marketing and use it as your competitive and distinctive advantage as you go out there against other MSPs, because it's huge to say that, hey, I'm going to share all I have because it's yours and you have access to it whenever you want. And knowing that we're going to trust on that path, that's a big deal from that perspective, to be that trusted advisor. Piggybacking off of that as well, for me, man, is down that same way. Is most of the time people go out there and you onboard your customer when you first bring them on, but a lot of things change over that course of a year that you have no idea. And so what we've been getting to a cadence is re-onboarding our customers at least twice a year to actually go back out there, go back on site, because one, the people that we onboarded at the first of the year, half of them are no longer there. And we got a whole new set that we didn't train and don't understand how to use our services. They've added some computers or added some kiosks or some weird thing on the network, got some printers in, some things that they didn't tell us about. We want to make sure that we're supporting those things, but it also allows you to continue to be top of mind of others that are in the office. A lot of us go out there and do business reviews with the owners or the people who sign contracts with us. But to be honest with you, those are not the guys that you need to have your allies. You need to be able to see the people in the trenches that call you, that you talk to on a daily basis. The exception is those are the ones that happen. Because I tell my guys every day, there's a meeting that happens like we have a daily huddle, or there's a meeting that happens once a week. And I guarantee you that ProdigyTeks or Renactus technology and 5K technical services is a topic of that conversation. And your goal is to have somebody in that meeting speaking up on your behalf.
Advocating.
Now, if they don't know you, they can't speak up for you, right? You got to make sure that those guys are saying, man, I opened up a case. Those guys are on it. They're doing what they got to get done. I get my computer done. The response, they need to be advocating on your behalf. So I would say it behooves you to get out there in front of your customer. Even if you can't get a QBR with the people who need it, go spend time with the people who are leveraging your resources and show them the value and know where it comes from. Because when they are having those meetings, they're actually having kind of a Jedi mind trick QBR, because they're speaking up on your behalf of saying, here's why I like 5K. Here's why I don't do that. And I tell you, it pays dividends bigger and far on beyond anything you can do. And hey, we throw out Tiff Treats cookies. We'll drop a pizza in there. We'll do whatever it needs to get done, because we want them to know who we are, so they can speak up on our behalf, so that when they come in and say, guys, we're thinking about changing IT, we want to go somewhere different, they're the first one to say, look, hold up. No, you leave them, we out, right? Or we got problems and we don't want to go through that process. And so you got to make sure it happens. Because one of the things we hear a lot is that I try to get QBR. They don't want to hook up with us. They don't want to talk to us. They don't want to do that. I've never had a challenge talking to the people that we support on a daily basis, wanting to meet with us, want to talk about us, want to know what's going on. And if we're solving their problems, it'll find its way up the chain, no doubt about it. So that's why we spend that time in there. So there's no excuse for not getting in front of your customers, but make sure you're doing it more than just once a year. Do it regularly for sure.
Yeah, it's so important to understand the fact that when you have a champion for you at a business and multiple champions, it goes your way. And exactly as you mentioned, we had a scenario where, we raised rates. And so the CEO mentioned to the office manager, you know what, we're going to have to start looking elsewhere because I already thought we were paying too much in first. Now they're raising the rates. We're going to have to look elsewhere. And so she put a hold into it. She's like, yeah, because you don't see what they're doing is what it is. And the fact, and so she ran through the differences of, hey, we can, but understand you're going to have a very painful 6 months than what we currently have right now versus the pain of paying an extra 5%. So I think we really need to reconsider that. And sure enough, it stayed through, and that's the great importance of champions. And I think for those that are, may not have the resources, you're running nimbly. This is the importance of having a CRM. Because let's say you don't have the ability to make your client visits, you're trying to put the fires out so that the forest doesn't burn. Noting their anniversary date is a simple way of saying, hey, we're not just here celebrating all of our clients year end or for a company, the internal MSP's anniversary. This is your anniversary. This is our time with you because you took the time to invest in your mitigation, your cyber resiliency into this piece. And we want to reward you to, hey, just thank you. Thank you for letting us be a help part of that journey. What's going on. And it's a great non-sales moment that you can instill trust and hear what's happening on the ground versus them just hearing from you, hey, end of life is happening. Give me 60 grand to replace all your systems. It brings that a little bit down. And especially for those clients that don't make time for you for QBRs and things of that nature, this helps kind of, leverage them a little bit lower to say, hey, we really do need to talk, but here's some cookies on the way. Right. So that's a great opportunity for that conversation and continuing that part as well.
Man, I'll just to piggyback on that, man. And that's the key is you're making them feel unique and making them feel special on what matters and knowing that you're paying attention to them by simply setting that simple date in the CRM that alerts you and says, hey, next week, ABC company has been with you for a year. Do something special and knows it. Because I guarantee you, they probably don't know. They probably have no idea what happened. They don't understand. And here you show up saying, hey, we want to celebrate and appreciate you because this is where we are. It makes game changing, totally game changing. And 99.9% of the time, they're going to be meeting with one of their customers or somebody's going to be there and they're going to see that. And they're going to like, hey, yo, what's up with that? What's going on? Oh, that's our IT guy celebrating us for being with them a year. How it goes. I mean, it just virals out, right? It's one of those things that's really, really cool. So definitely do that for sure. Love it.
Yeah, it makes sense. And the other thing too is I will go back to something Corey talked about, and Paco mentioned this too. It's always great to have those advocates in the office because you're going to have two sets. It's going to come from two groups. So you're going to have your advocates and then you're going to have the detractors, right? Because there's going to be somebody who wanted to do something one way. You didn't let them do it that way, or you tried your best to be diplomatic about it. But the bottom line is, no, you can't do it that way. It has to be done this way for this reason. And they don't like it that way, right? Just a classic example of this, MFA is a 3-second or 10-second extra step, but you get so much pushback from it. It is absolutely ridiculous. And I can explain to you till you're blue in the face and from 55 different point of views as to why it's important or why you use it. And you still don't get it because you don't want to take that extra step. So now I am the bad guy, right? Because I'm forcing you to do that. So you're going to be your detractors, and then you're going to have your people who understand. But both of them do one thing for you. And it's always good to communicate with both of them because they give you information. They can tell you when you're doing right, and they can also tell you when you're screwing up, right? You have to learn to decipher the information, use what they give you to improve upon services before it either gets escalated or it could already be escalated. And this is your opportunity to be, the word we use all the time, proactive in solving the problem or fixing the issue, or maybe even just clarifying why things are the way they are, right? And then sometimes an inconvenience is not necessarily something being done wrong. It's just, it's not the way I want to do it, right? So it's inconvenient to me. That doesn't make it wrong. But I think so. Those are things that are very important. So one of the things I've learned from the field, I always try to find me an advocate, and you always want to, I'm trying to find the right word here, but you really want to encourage that advocate to stay an advocate. So I'll just leave it that way. But again, in business, like everything else, you got to learn how to adapt and how to make changes, right? But you also have to be, and for us, this is important, you have to be strict and get someone to make sure that they follow the rules. So going back to something Corey and Paco both brought up earlier, how many times have you walked into a place and someone new was there that they didn't tell you about, or something new was there they didn't tell you about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to get clients in the mode of making sure that changes run through you. You don't have to approve the changes, but you need to be aware of the changes. It is such a security risk when a new client comes in. He say, "Hey, how are you accessing the system?" "Oh, I'm just using the last person's stuff." That means that you have access to this, and this person who left, maybe whether it's under good terms or bad terms, they still have access, right? So, those are things that you got to really be able to explain to your clients and get them to understand the significance of what you're telling them. The significance and the importance of what you're doing and why you're doing it the way you're doing it. And so I'd say one of the greatest lessons Paco talks about is CRM. We talked about being an advocate, having an advocate, knowing who your detractors are, but you also just always have to have a process, right? There's always got to be a process, and it needs to be consistent so that you're not jumping around doing things like client A does it this way, so now you got to make a set of rules this way. Client B does it this way, you got to make a set of rules this way. Client D don't do none of that. So, and it goes back to, again, the discipline of knowing who your clients are and who you want to work with, because if they can't do it the way that, I'm not gonna say the way you say to do it, but the way that it needs to be done, then it's always going to be a headache for you. And you're going to learn a bigger lesson when either they sue you or something majorly goes wrong. And you're spending a lot of unnecessary, as Paco uses the term, unplanned work fixing a problem that didn't need to be created.
Yeah, no, all great points. And, I think we're already at about the 45-minute mark. So rather than going around with additional stories, I think these 3 key stories have highlighted several things and lessons that you should be taking away from with your business, right? But ultimately, these lessons are for you to improve, and you have the ability to understand that, there are ways to systematize how you do things, but oftentimes it's just experience that's going to give you those greater lessons, whether that's a soft, gentle, "Oh, I should have done that," or a slap in the face to let you know, "Hey, this is probably something you probably should have figured out beforehand." These are all things that help you prevent that unplanned work, address those changes, and really addressing the projects and understanding on how you're running your business, and how do you make a ability of maybe your business is not running as you would like it to be, and making it into a profitable business, understanding what you have going on so that you can lead forward with those lessons that you learned from the field. So with that, I'll go around if there's any additional last words before we go ahead and round out the show here.
Enough mine, man. Just really pay attention and keep your finger on the pulse with your customers, not just the single point of contact of the people who pay the bills, but the workers who actually utilize your skills and technology, have that personal touch back with you. Make sure that's a priority as well.
Mr. Rick,
I'll just leave it with this, and Paco said this too, but documentation is key. You need to have good documentation, and your clients need to have access to their documentation, or the things that you have that belong to them. As Corey said, they own it, and we need to give them access to it. So I think that's just important to do, and make sure that as you go along, as you develop processes, one of those is that this is how our clients can get what they need, and this is how we can get what we need, which is all just turn back to documentation.
All great words, all great words. And then with that, we want to thank you for tuning in this week. If you like the video podcast, check us out on youtube.com/MSP Unplugged. Like, subscribe, and hit that notification button to be notified whenever a new episode is available. You can also take us with you on the go on your favorite podcatcher app. We're on Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and we'd love to hear from you. Feel free to drop a review on any of those platforms to let us know what you think about this show, what we can add, what we can remove, or maybe you just want to hear more Rick all the time because I don't let the man talk enough. You let me know, leave a review over on those podcatcher apps. And most importantly, don't forget to get your tickets over at TechConUnplugged.com. We will be again in Chicago this June 20th. It's going to be a great time. At the airing of this episode, I will be in Vegas. So if you're in ESET World or at Channel Partners Expo or Channel Futures MSP Summit, drop me a note on LinkedIn. Let's get together. We'd love to reach out, see if you have any topics of concern, some success stories, or any lessons that I can share, or maybe that you've learned along the way that we can highlight on this show. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next time on MSP Unplugged.